You're listening to the Imprint Podcast. I'm your host, Micah, and today's episode is titled, Your Folks Gave You a Black Eye. This poem is written by me. Robbed me of my childhood, stealing my freedom, killing my dreams, destroying my plans. Crushed my spirit, clipped my wings, drowned my ideas, abandoned my mind. Lost my interests, confused my understanding, contradicted yourself, hurt my pride. Shot down my fun, feared my growth, doubted my strength, weakened my strength. Abused my trust, rained on my parade, screamed at my peace of mind, blurred my vision, betrayed my belief, sickened my health, pacified my dreams of wealth, blamed it all on wealth. Finished my start, extinguished my star, battled my scars, broke my heart. So, this one I wrote on June 29th of 2019. And this is an interesting one to break down because at the time, the headspace that I was in, I was very angry, I was upset. I was a little confused, I was feeling unsupported. And looking back on it now, I have so many different views and outlooks of the situation. And I'm gonna try to just talk about all of it because I feel like there's a couple different ways and a couple different things to learn from this. So, like I said, this poem was written by me, and during this time, I was preparing to move out of my parents' house. I had already been accepted to the school I graduated from, but like I said a couple episodes ago, I was online, and I wound up doing a visit, and I was like, you know what? This is not my ideal dream of the college experience, but it's good enough, and I'm going to explore my options and move on campus. You know, that's real. And I was packing up because I had exactly 30 days before it was move-in day. And I think that my parents were not expecting me to take this jump. So a little background about my childhood. I kind of grew up like very, very close with my family. You know, I rarely did anything where I was like going out of the state or going out of the country, unless it was with family. And like I never did camp. I never did anything that was gonna take me away from my family for a long period of time if I wasn't going to be with my relatives. And, you know, growing up when you're little, it's kind of normal to want to just be up under your parents all the time. But like as I got older, I started having this like passion and want to like travel and go places and see things. And I felt that college was the perfect opportunity to do that. And my parents were not on board. And now looking back, it was for the right reasons, which is the reasons that generally all parents and guardians have when their child wants to go to college is how far away are you going to be? Are you going to be able to work a job? Are you going to be able to provide for yourself? You know, are you going to be lonely? Are you going to be safe? You know, are you going to make all the right choices? Especially when you're thinking from a financial standpoint, because I didn't have a college fund. So I had to pay my way through college. And, you know, it's just all these worries. At that time, I didn't have a car. You know, I had a license, but I didn't have a car. And, you know, my parents both talked to me separately, and they kind of just sat me down and told me like, you know, this is good that you want to pursue your education, but we don't think it's time for you to move out. We don't think it's time for you to leave just yet. There's too many things that are like not in order and in place for you to just be living on your own. Granted, the college was 45 minutes to an hour from my house. And I just couldn't see what the big deal was. So in the poem, as we start to look through it, I'll have a better description of why I felt the way I felt in that moment, how I thought my parents felt in that moment and how I feel about everything now. So starting with the first stanza, it says, "Rob me of my childhood, stealing my freedom, killing my dreams, destroyed my plans." So that first section is basically just a normal teenage, oh, my parents don't want me to have fun. My parents don't care. They just want their way or the highway. That was kind of the second part. The first part of the stanza, "Rob me of my childhood, stealing my freedom," was more of, you don't want me to pursue my childhood dream, which is to become a lawyer. I had always dreamed about going to college to become a lawyer. I had switched my major from paralegal studies, and that was the whole reason why I transferred schools. And by them basically saying, "We don't think you're ready," it just made me feel like, dang, like I can't do what I feel like I was meant to do. And that kind of it upset me, and it set me back a few steps. The second stanza says, "Crush my spirit, clip my wings, drown my ideas, abandon my mind." And so this is more of how it feels in that moment, to know that you're chasing something that not only you want, but you strongly feel God wants for you. Like, I had no intention on going to this college. I had already been accepted somewhere else, and it was my first choice school. But I just could not afford it. And I had to kind of cope with that and grieve that, because I was like, that would have been perfect. But, once I finally came to terms with, okay, this is what God wants for me, and this is where I'm supposed to be, I just thought the two people whose opinions I care about the most would be like, yeah, you're going to do this. We believe in you. And it was like, to them, yes, you can do it, but only on our terms, which was staying at home. And, it just felt like, they were not supporting me. And the third stanza says, "Lost my interest, confused my understanding, contradicted yourself, hurt my pride." So the first two lines, "lost my interest, confused my understanding," was me basically saying, like, I hear you, but I'm not listening. Like, it's just invalid because I already have my mind made up. I already know what I want to do. And it doesn't matter what I say or what I do. It's like, I'm not getting the response I want, basically. And then the second part is "contradicted yourself and hurt my pride," which is me basically saying, you're contradicting yourselves, because you say, like, oh, we want you to follow God's plan. We want you to be successful. We want you to do all the things that you dream about. And yet when an opportunity presents itself for me to do those things, it's like, no. Or there's like roadblocks, or just things that they put into my mind that made me feel like, okay, maybe I'm not ready for this. And it was hurtful because I wanted to believe, like, I'm not ready for this, but I had every indication telling me, you need to go to college, you need to move out. The next stanza says, "Shot down my fun, feared my growth, doubted my strength, weakened my strength." And so I'm kind of shifting gears here and just talking about, like, you don't believe in me. That's basically, to sum that up, is you don't think that this could be a good thing. You don't think that this could be a positive thing. Like, and maybe they did at that time, but that is not how I was receiving it. I was receiving it as just no, and these are all the reasons why you won't be as successful as you think you'll be if you move out. And they were giving me all the cons and things of living in a city where I'm not familiar, blindly just going somewhere where I know absolutely nobody. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, that is the whole point of college. Like, 9 times out of 10, you're not going to go somewhere where you know anyone. And it's up to you as the student to make it what you want it to be. Are you going to make friends? Are you going to follow through with your career goals? Are you going to make good grades? Stuff like that. The next one says, "Abused my trust, rained on my parade, screamed at my peace of mind, blurred my vision." So that stanza was talking about how I felt in that moment. I felt like I couldn't trust them, because if you're saying you want all of these good things for me, why are you giving me all the reasons why I shouldn't do this? The second line says, "rained on my parade," which means, like, I was so excited to go, and it hurt me because, like I said earlier, I didn't get the response I wanted. And so there wasn't a lot of excitement in the house. There wasn't a lot of happiness because it seemed like, oh, Kayla is just leaving the house. Like, she's just moving out. She's just trying to get away. She's just trying to be grown, which that comes with growing up, but that wasn't my focus at the time. I was just so laser focused on being a lawyer. And like, even when I got to school, all of the people I went to college with, even now, will tell you, like, that was all I talked about. I talked about all the crime shows and how I was going to do my internship and how that was going to be set up. And, I'm staying late talking to my professors. I still have a great relationship with all my professors now and still go to them and, talk to them, because that was something that I was chasing. That was something that I knew I was put on this earth to do. And I still believe that. So, in my mind, I'm just thinking, if I can just attain that goal, like, I'll be satisfied. And then the last two lines of that stanza says, screamed at my peace of mind and blurred my vision, which was me basically saying, now I'm full of doubt that I didn't have before, because I thought that, it would be a no-brainer. You guys would be on board. And now I'm getting all this pushback, and I'm like, okay, am I really doing the right thing here? And so the next stanza says, betrayed my belief, sickened my health, pacified my dreams of wealth, and blamed it all on wealth. So this is still just talking about being let down. And then the second half of that, where I'm talking about dreams of wealth and blaming it on wealth, is basically like, their main argument to me was, you don't have any money. And it's like, I'm trying to go to college so that I can make money. And they're pacifying that dream by telling me, you don't even have any money to start with. And I was just like, well, dang, you don't think I can get a job? Like, you don't think I can work? Like, what's going on here? At this time in my life, I had just turned, or I was about to turn 21. And, so I was well over the normal age of, going to college. And I'm like, at this point, I have corporate America work experience on my resume. I have retail experience. My resume was pretty stacked before I went to college, to say the least. And I was like, I'm bound to get a job somewhere. And I was even willing to work on campus, because I knew at that time I didn't have a car. And I was like, I don't know anyone well enough to depend on, to take me places if I had to get a job off campus. And so I was like, dang, like, you haven't even given me a chance to even see if I can do it or not. And I'm the type of person where, if my mind is made up about something, I'm going to try it, whether I think I'm going to make it or not. Because I'd rather say I tried and it didn't work out than to say I didn't try and what if. That's just something that I've always thought about, and that has always stuck with me since I was little. Like, I just don't know. Like, I don't know if it's just something God put in me, or if it's just something that as long as I can remember, that has been my motto, and it still is to this day with everything that I do. I'd rather say I'll try it, and if everything fails and falls apart, that's fine. But at least I can say, yeah, I tried that and it didn't work out. And then the very last stanza says, finished my start, extinguished my star, battled my scars, and broke my heart. And so that was just me honestly feeling like defeated. Like, I'm gonna do this, but it's not gonna be as daunting of a task, because I don't have any excitement about disappointing my parents. But like I said, I knew God was calling me to go here and do this. And now it's been almost 3 years since I graduated, and I can see immensely how God has used me and allowed others to pour into me being here. And I can truly and honestly say that there are things that I got from that experience of college that I wouldn't have gotten anywhere else. And I honestly don't think I would have gotten those experiences at another college. This place is very unique, and the people that come here and graduate from here are handpicked by God to be here. And to know that almost didn't happen because I let the fears and worries of others influence me, I don't know what my life would look like. It's kind of hard for me to picture because, like I said, so much has happened and I just don't know. I really don't know. So yeah, the theme here is just honestly doubt and feeling let down. And like I said, my parents, God-fearing people, and they were very, I don't want to say this because I know they're going to be listening, but I felt that they were overprotective. And at that time, I could not understand why, because I was like, me, my sister, and my brother, we're good kids. We don't get into trouble. We don't get into fights. We're very intelligent. If I could speak for all of us, I would go out on a whim and say we all enjoyed school and enjoyed learning. So I just couldn't figure out why. But when I think about how they grew up and the environment, that they were in, they didn't have as much restriction. They had a lot more freedom. And they could see firsthand how certain people were raised when they didn't have, the restrictions that they felt were needed at the time. And so I feel like, in my opinion, when they had kids, they were like, we're going to protect them at all costs because the world is a wicked place and we don't want them to be hurt. There's a fine line between, protection and getting hurt, I feel like. And at some point, it is healthy to allow children to experience things for themselves. Obviously you can monitor and make sure, certain things aren't getting too out of hand, but, you got to allow them to kind of fall down and scrape their knee and, get some bumps and bruises so that they can be better suited for the harder tests in life. I didn't feel like I was finally independent until I made that move. And so that's why I feel like I don't know what my life would look like now if I didn't take that step and say, God, I'm going to trust you, even though there is nothing lined up. Like, I've never heard of this city before. I don't know anybody here besides my admissions counselor. And, it was just, there was a lot of maybes and uncertainties, but I felt such an overwhelming peace and calmness that I knew, okay, this has to be of God, because in any other aspect, I'd probably be agreeing with my parents saying like, yeah, I don't have a car. I don't have money. I don't have a job lined up. I don't know this place. I don't know these people. Going into that place, being the same age as the people who were graduating and having to start with, people who were freshmen and sophomores, that was a big stretch too, because I'm like, the people that I would connect with are about to be on their way out and I'm going to be just coming in. So there's a lot that went into it. And like I said, now looking back, I can understand a little bit more where my parents were coming from. It wasn't so much of, we don't want you to live your dreams. We don't want you to be successful. We don't think you can do it. You're not strong enough. It wasn't that. It was more of, you're going into a place where we cannot physically protect you because we're not going to be around you every day and we're not going to see you all the time. That's fair. I can understand that now. But at that time, I wasn't trying to hear any of that. I was like, no, like, I'm grown. I know what I'm doing. I have a phone. I can make a phone call if I need to. I'm gonna get it. Like, I'm gonna be all right, basically. And I don't know if I really believed that or if that was God just putting that in me to make me feel the unction to go. But that was where I was in my head at that time. And I couldn't easily be influenced to do the opposite. There was a couple other people in my family who were like, yeah, go do it, go live your life and have experiences. And there's a couple other people who were telling me like, you're not ready. And I had to say, okay, well, what is God saying? And for about 4 or 5 months, I fasted and prayed about moving off campus. I was very intentional about it. I took it very seriously. I was super disciplined with it. And when God gave me my answer to go, I was praying like, God, let my parents be on board. Let them be excited for me. Let them want this for me and da-da-da. So when that didn't happen, that kind of shook my faith a little bit because I'm like, okay, God, you're telling me to do this, but I don't have the support I thought I was going to receive. And the lesson that I learned from that is you have to be willing to go where God is telling you and do what God is telling you to do, regardless of anybody's opinion and anybody's thoughts. And that goes for parents, guardians, aunts, uncles, sister, brothers, cousin, husband, boyfriend, nieces, nephew. They don't matter. If God himself is telling you, I need you to go over here and do this assignment, by all means, go. It doesn't mean, be disrespectful and leave on bad terms and burn bridges. You got to be respectful and say, this is what God is telling me to do, and I hope that you stick around to see why. I hope you stay in my life to see why. And you have to be okay with if they stay around or if they leave you, because at the end of the day, we have to answer to God, and there is an assignment and an agenda from him for me in this area, and I'm seeing it unfold every year, I feel like. And I'm like, until he's ready for me to go somewhere else, I have to be obedient and stay in him and do what God is calling me to do here. Because on Judgment Day, when we all go before God, he's going to be like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? So I don't want to have to answer that specific question if I can prevent it. If I can just be able to say, okay, God, you told me to do 2 or 3 things and I didn't do it, but the rest I did, I'll be fine. Which I'm not totally convinced that it's going to happen that way. But if I can help it, I'm going to try to obey his word and follow his path as best as I can. And the other lesson God taught me from this was that you got to give your parents grace. And so I'm talking to all of the children out there, whether you're 13 or 55, we are all someone's child. Even if your parents aren't in your life physically, even if you have to answer to an aunt or a grandmother or a grandfather, there is somebody over you that is raising you that you have to hold account to. We all have to answer to somebody, and you have to give those people that hold that space in your life grace. You have to understand that there are things we're not going to understand that they have went through already, and they have a better outlook and insight. And one thing I remember my dad telling me was, you think just because you're going to a Christian college, like you're not going to be tempted and you're not going to be wanting to do things that are of the world. And he was like basically telling me, don't be naive. And at the time I was like, I'm not going to be anywhere near that. I'm not going to get involved in none of that. Like, I'm here for one thing and one thing only, and that's to get my degree. And when I say I was tempted in every way and I gave in, I'll probably say about 50% of the time I gave in. And, I realized that sometimes when parents say things, it may seem negative and them just trying to take stuff away from you, but a lot of it is coming from a place of experience, and they're just trying to warn you and not so much dictate to you. And so coming out of college and I look back, I'm like, man, yeah, there was a lot of temptation, there was a lot of influence, and you can blame it on whatever, being bored, just wanting to have fun, wanting to fit in. At the end of the day, it still happened. And, I think my dad telling me that is what saved me from giving in the other 50% of the time, because I could have ended up in a world of trouble doing things that I really shouldn't have been doing. If anything, being at a Christian college will put you further into the devil's mind, because he feels like, okay, how serious are you taking your relationship with Christ? And he's going to throw everything at you 10 times harder than he would at anybody who's at a regular public school. Not to say people in public school don't get tempted in the same ways, but when you are a follower of Christ and you portray yourself to be a follower of Christ, we all know you're going to get hit even worse. You're going to be ridiculed and criticized even more. And if you don't have God on the inside of you and the Holy Spirit on the inside of you, convicting you and showing you and trying to help you, then you're going to fall every single time. Every single time. That was kind of the second lesson that I got from this. And then the last takeaway, the last lesson I got was, parents, you got to let your children grow up. It's hard, it's difficult, but like I said earlier, you have to let them fall a couple times, get a couple cuts and bruises, so that they can be better equipped to handle life's uncertainties. You know, the teenage years are crucial formative years, and everything that they learn and take with them starts when they're teenagers. It doesn't start after you graduate college. I mean, after you graduate college, you get a little bit more insight on life, but the core values and lessons are being taught when they're teenagers. And so if you start to trust them a little bit more and give them a little bit more freedom, as you see fit, it'll turn into more of a relationship than a dictatorship where they just feel like, oh, my parents hate me, or all my parents want to do is just be the boss, and they don't want to let me live, and and that's gonna happen. It's normal. And the most important part is, what are they learning through that? Constantly tell them, hey, this is why I'm saying this. Give them examples, show them, let them experience certain things for themselves, so that they can say for themselves, yeah, I'm never going to do this, or yeah, this is something I might want to get into. Because a lot of what I heard coming to this school was, oh, I never had an intention of going to college, but my parents made me. Luckily, I didn't have that. My parents were, when you turn 18, the choice is completely up to you. If you want to get a job or if you want to go to college, it's completely up to you. And I was fortunate for that because, like I said, a lot of my peers didn't have that. Their parents were like, as soon as you turn 18, you're out of here. And not only are you out of here, but you're going to a Christian school. Like, they were forced to go into a Christian school. And that kind of just hurt me, because I'm like, well, do they even want to go to college? Like, is their passion something else? Maybe they need to take a couple more years off. Like, where's the, I'm gonna let you be 18 and let you be an adult? Like, it just wasn't that. That's why it's important to let your kids have some type of experience, so they can say, college is not for me, or college is for me. And it'll be a choice that they make on their own. And that's just not with college, that's with anything. That could be with searching for jobs, searching for a career, even hobbies. Maybe they don't want to be a musician, maybe they want to be an actress, maybe they don't want to be an actress, maybe they want to get into modeling. Like, you don't know. But don't be so wanting to be there to the point where it's you that's taking the reins. Let them be, and allow God to carry them. Because I personally feel like, as parents, if you're doing the job with your children the way God intended, then you shouldn't have to worry. You shouldn't have to fear. Because you will know, I did my part successfully, and God is instilled in them, and they will be okay. If I go to a salon and I'm paying somebody to cut my hair, as soon as the hairdresser picks up the scissors, I'm not going to reach back and start trimming my hair, because it's like, well, I've already paid my money. Why am I trying to cut my own hair? Trust the hairdresser to do the job. And if it don't go well, then you can be like, oh well, give me my money back. Like, if I pray and I ask God, hey, my child wants to do this, my child wants to pursue something that I'm not so sure of, I'm trusting you to guide them. That's really all you have to do. Because even with the temptation that I fell into in college, like, I still turned out okay. I still graduated when I was supposed to. I got the degree, and eventually I am going to go back to school to get a law degree. And so, I'm still working that plan out that God had already had in place for me here. I can honestly not be so harsh on my parents in my mind about the whole situation, because I see it from a different perspective now, because I actually, experienced some of the things that they were afraid of. I experienced lack. I did have a job, but when COVID hit, I got laid off. So I did struggle. I struggled with not having a car. And then, eventually I got one, but I did have to work 2 jobs at one point in order to make sure I had enough money for a down payment on a car. So there was a lot of things that they bought up that happened, but it wasn't detrimental. I fell down a couple of times, but I got right back up. I figured it out. Over the summers, I made sure I worked jobs and did what I needed to do so I could have a little bit to save and be ahead. I was always focused, and I still am. And I made sure whatever I had to do, no matter what type of fun I got into, if I needed to be up at 8 a.m. to go to my class, I was up at 8 a.m. to go to my class. I was passing those tests, I was studying, I was isolating myself when I needed to, because I knew at the end of the day that I need to get this degree. And I wasn't letting nobody, no fun, no person stop me from doing that. No distraction stop me from doing that. And I'm proud, and I know my parents are immensely proud, because they tell me all the time, like, I'm so proud of you for sticking to it and not giving up and having belief for the end goal, even when we didn't have belief. Because I know after COVID hit, they both kind of were nervous because, one, I didn't know if I was going to have a school to come back to. And, I didn't have the best luck with college up until that point. So I know they were probably thinking I was going to be, knocked off my rocker a little bit and not just want to go back. And I'm going to be honest, I did think about it. I did think about it. But I said, no, like, I have a duty and an assignment to do unto God. And I wasn't in a position to play around, basically. Like, I knew what God was calling me to do, and I was like, I'm not about to test him. Just because things get rough, I'm not going to just quit. And when I finally did graduate, it was just something that we just celebrated for a long time. I think we celebrated the whole Christmas break because it seemed like it was taking forever for me to cross that stage. And after those 4 years were up, I was like, wow, now I'm in the real world. But there were some things that I was able to navigate a little bit better because of my experience. And then the most important part was I was able to then pour into the next generation of students after me and tell them, like, hey, I know about all these distractions. Let me help you navigate it. And I have students to this day still come to me and, ask me for advice and what I think about certain things. And I just kind of laugh because I'm like, I would not be able to answer these questions if I didn't go through it myself. And that is so unique and so special to be able to connect with people through experiences. I feel like you can better relate to people when you know they've been through the same thing as me and they're not just sugarcoating it. It's real. So those are my 3 takeaways from that one. And I was very hesitant about reading this because of the title. The title is saying your folks gave you a black eye. It's basically saying, like, the people you care about also have the ability to hurt you the most and have hurt you. Which in this case, I was talking about my parents, but like, it could be anybody, whether it's a close friend, a brother, a sister. Like, they are not perfect. Sometimes they mean well and it still winds up hurting you anyway. And they have the ability to to hurt you because of them not being perfect. And so that is where the title came from. But I really felt like I was like, no, like, this is a perfect opportunity to speak to children and to speak to parents, because I can see both sides of the coin. When a few years ago, I was only seeing it one-sided. And when you're able to see, like, I know how I feel, but let me at least try to see how you feel about it. Let me see things from your perspective. And that's so important and so key. And it's going to just better relationships when you're able to come out of your own thinking and resonate with someone else. So why is this poem important, and how can we learn from it? I believe this poem is important because it's going to come a time when you're going to have to take a step, and people that you care about and trust the most are probably not going to have the same outlook as you. And it's important to understand and reason with each other than to just completely say no or completely say yes and not think about, having a conversation about it and considering all the outcomes. And what we can learn from it is that it's better to, be honest. And even if you have 1,000 fears about somebody doing something, it's better to just lay it all out there and say, however, I trust you, or I believe in you, or I will pray for you, than to not say anything at all or just say what you're afraid of and leave it at that. Because at the end of the day, you want to keep that relationship, you want to keep that friendship, you want to keep that partnership. And so no matter what you're doing, always keep God first. Another thing we can learn from this is, like I said earlier, if God is telling you to do something, do it. Don't worry about what she has to say. Don't worry about what he has to say. Don't worry about what they said last year. Don't worry about what they're doing. Just go out there and trust God. Have the faith to do what he's telling you to do. Because in the end, whatever happens, it's going to be for the glory of him, and he will guide you through and give you grace and strength. So that is why I feel like it's relevant to today and just very important. So I hope you enjoyed this written piece of the journey, and I hope that I can inspire you to write your own, and I will talk to you in the next episode.